Hi, this is Steve Saxty. So I'm really excited. These are the two first copies of the book. They just arrived with me today. There's the standard edition, collector's edition. You can see the collector's edition has a different cover. Comes in this rather beautiful slipcase. And I have to say the first thing that strikes me is just how heavy it is. I didn't realize it weighs nearly 6 pounds, which is what, roughly 2.5, 3 kilos. It's a heavy book. It's a thick book. That's the standard edition, and as you can see, it's over an inch thick there. So I thought it might be fun just for me and to share with everybody else just what it looks like to see the book. So you open it, and again, that is just how thick it is. I just love the way the pictures have come together. The designer has made a fantastic job, and it really is a trip back in time from the earliest beginnings in the 60s, which when you look at the index, you can see how it's going to progress in the stories. And if you've read the intro to the book online, you'll recognize a few of these pages and the words within it. And then we go into the forwards. So there are 3 forwards, one for Bob Lutz, the famous former chairman of Ford of Europe, Rob Mansfield, the special vehicle engineer, and then Patrick Lecaimont, very, very famous Renault engineer, but before that, long-term designer at Ford, who was most closely associated with the Sierra. So it's fascinating because when you read this, and they're really, really personal intros from these guys, you get a feel for the main characters almost in the book before you read the story. So we then begin slowly to kick off an explanation of code words and all that fun stuff. And we go into the 60s. Now, if I'm honest, I didn't think, I'm too young, that I would find the 60s so interesting, but it's a fascinating way of learning how Ford started off and was so unique. And then we move into the Capri years, obviously, of the 60s, and how the Capri was designed, and you see loads of these unbelievable pictures of Escort coupes and Capri design sketches, and the car evolving almost from this sort of the primordial soup. And we progress page by page. We look at the advertising and we see the car get designed, and we're still only 60 pages in, and we're moving into the different designs for the Capri that were never seen. I think that's just beautiful, that spread that we see on each of those 2 pages. So we move across into the world of Cortina, the Cortina coupes, and the Granada as it was designed, and we learn a little bit more about the people. We see Bob Lutz there, and then the second generation version of Capri. It's by no means a Capri book, but just look at those beautiful pictures there of the Capris that you never saw, that never came out. So as I look through it, we move through the Capri years, and then we're getting into the late 70s. And so the last generation of the Capri, last generation of the Cortina, the Fiesta comes along, and we talk about the Fiesta's design and how important that was as Ford reinvented itself. And we move finally from those Capri years into Sierra. And there you see the very first design model of the Sierra when it was signed off without the wing of the XR4i. And we go back into the earlier stages of the Sierra as the Granada sort of signs off, and the Escort gets going, and some beautiful, beautiful illustrations there I think we have of Escort. And the alternatives here for what the Sierra could have been, very conventional design was considered, and then these unbelievably radical sketches came out. And remember, this is back in 1978. We think of the Sierra as an 80s car. This was started 78, this car. And we see the Sierra take form in these pictures, and these wonderful, wonderful design sketches that we found here of how the car was styled. The design prototypes, the mules as they call them, based upon Cortinas. We see the XR4i and the Pro here. And slowly but surely, the Sierra comes alive. So we then move from the Sierra years, and I'll skip forward a bit here because there's so much wonderful stuff on Sierra, and as the Granada kind of came in, and we move into the Cosworth years, and I think some of these Cosworth concepts, 5-door Cosworth there, some of these cars are just remarkable that I've never seen. That's the first ever Sierra Cosworth that was ever running on that page. And if we look back here a couple of pages, we'll see the XR4i Sierra Cosworth, the very first mule that was a mixture of both XR4i and Sierra. So wonderful, wonderful stuff as it comes together there. The Capri fades out, we go more into the Sierra years, and then of course it's time to hand over as we move into the 80s. And this car, long forgotten to the mists of time, was called the Barchetta, and it was sold amazingly as it evolved from this car that got bigger and bigger into a car that was called Capri in America. An alternative for an RS coupe, and then we move into the Probe years, a car that people seem to give a hard time at. But actually, it's kind of interesting if you think of the story behind it with Mazda, and then we move into the Escort years of the Escort coming in, and then the Puma. And I found the story of the Puma was really, really interesting, actually. I find that it was a car that I didn't know too much about first time around, and to really talk to the designers, and some of these materials they've given us have never been seen before. Just wonderful, wonderful. We talk about the racing Puma here, and then we move into what feels like not too long ago, but it's actually coming up to 20 years ago, was the time of the Cougar here, and some of the alternatives for the Cougar that could have been marvellous, and you know, the challenges that that car faced in the market. And then we begin to move towards the end of the book, which is the Capri you never promised yourself, when against all odds there was a time of all these retro modern designs like the Thunderbird, the car could have come back. And so the book then moves through into that early 2000s period, which again feels like quite recent, into today. And we see the relevance of the three cars we started out in this book, which was the GT40 that becomes the GT. We saw the Mustang that became the Capri. The Mustang is still around, and obviously the small Escort and now Focus RSs. And so we sort of see it turn full circle of those three cars, the GT, the Focus and the Mustang, as the cars we see on sale together. And because this is a book about Europe more than it's a book about America, this talks about how the Mustang was modified for Europe, and I rather love this sort of sign-off shot here of the coupe and the RS cars from the 70s and 80s and the modern cars today. So that's the standard edition of the book. And now I'll just pick up the collector's edition and take that out of its case. So the collector's edition comes with this absolutely gigantic poster in the back, which I sort of can't even fold out here, which is massive. And we put the box to one side. You see here in the collector's edition, and this is my own personal copy, by the way. So for those that buy it, will see each signed, but this copy doesn't actually have a number. Where is the signature page? Let me find that. There we go. So it's signed, but it doesn't have a number. And the collector's edition has a whole extra chapter, which I really, really adored writing and researching with Ford's designers. And this takes us through each of the designs, and they were beautifully illustrated by a chap in Paris. And these are hand-drawn illustrations. They're absolutely gorgeous, I think. They're on the back of the poster as well. And we walk our way through each of the designs. A couple of Capris there, and then we move into the Cosworth world, and you see there the Sierra Cosworth 1992 three-door prototype, which everybody seems to be very excited about, and the world of Escort and things that people equally have so much affection for. And a car I almost rediscovered, really, the racing Puma of 2000, which I grew very, very fond of. And I thought it was lovely. Patrick LeCaimont, the designer, became so involved in this book that he actually wrote this lovely, quite sweet, quite funny, quite charming piece about how he loved designing all the stripes on these cars when he was a junior designer. And Patrick became a very, very famous designer at Renault later. This is Patrick's piece that closes the book about his wonderful times with Ford when he was there back in the 70s and 80s. So that's in the collector's edition of the book, but they're both rather lovely, and as I say, the thing that surprised me now they've arrived today is just how thick both of them are. They're very, very heavy books, and I'm over the moon about it. I'll probably share some better videos, but I just wanted to share them now as they both arrived for me today, and thanks. I hope you enjoyed looking at it for the first time.